Chapter 13. The extra long guitar solo. Max Ernest had run all the way from the hospital, but he walked upstairs to Cass's room as if his feet were dipped in concrete, not even bothering to count the steps. He knew from the 177 times he had climbed the stairs that there were 24, but he almost always counted nonetheless. Somehow between the hospital and Cass's room he had begun to lose faith. Perhaps he should have been excited now that he finally had his possession, that means of reading Cass's mind. But that was the problem. He was afraid he didn't have the means after all. The monocle which he had looked through again and again had helped him to see into the minds of the healthy, walking, talking people that he'd pass on the street. How could he expect it to help him look inside the mind of someone in a coma? The one clear image he had seen through the monocle was that, on balance, he had rather not have seen. The image of his adult self, chocolate addicted and seemingly half mad. It wouldn't hurt to try taking one, the older Max Ernest had said. The young Max Ernest assumed this meant he should talk to Cass. But was talking to her supposed to wake her up? That sounded like exactly the sort of superstitious nonsense he couldn't abide. He was embarrassed that his adult self would recommend it. I happen to know the older Max Ernest wasn't recommending any such thing. In fact, he wasn't speaking to the younger Max Ernest at all. He was speaking to his cat. The door to Cass's bedroom was wide open, but Max Ernest stopped and stood in front of it for a full minute. It took all his self-control not to turn around and flee. The last time Max Ernest had been in her bedroom was the day Cass had fallen into a coma. With the exception of the hospital bed in the middle, and Max Ernest couldn't quite get himself to look at that yet, much of the room looked exactly the same as it had looked then, only sadder. In the past, Cass's sock monsters, there were now quite a few of them, had always provided a little levity. If you aren't familiar with sock monsters, they are exactly what they sound like, monsters made of old socks and assorted scraps. Cass had a habit of making them in moments of stress. Cass had never been one to play much with dolls or stuffed animals. She used to give each sock monster its own voice and character, and sock monsters would lecture Max Ernest on the finer points of emergency communication and first aid. Now the monsters just stood lifeless on the shelf, a Greek chorus gone silent. If Cass' wall of horrors, as her mother called it, wasn't as entertaining as it had once been. All the pictures and articles that Cass had clipped and taped above her bed, and then floating mines and exploding volcanoes and the forest fires and the flooded towns, were grim reminders not only of disaster and destruction, but the pointy-eared Cyrillus herself. Given that they have to die, and despite what the Masters of the Midnight Sun would wish, everyone has to die sometime. Most people would prefer to die in bed at home, surrounded by loved ones. Yet Cass, Max Ernest's reflection morbidly, would have preferred much more dramatic demises. If not a shark attack or an avalanche, at least a collapsed building or a plane crash. If he couldn't save her life, could he at least improve her death? Would the real friend make sure she died not in her boring old bed, but in some sort of spectacular disaster? Briefly, he considered ways of ensuring a more exciting end to her story in Cass's life. It was hard to think of one that wouldn't cause collateral damage. Years of friendship Cass had trained Max Ernest to think of the worst case scenarios. One, if he left Cass in the road, he would likely cause a multi-car collision, and result might even worse if he left her on a train track. If he threw Cass off a bridge, Her body might never be recovered. He knew from watching television that an unrecovered body was never a good thing. If he set Cass on fire, the house next door would very likely catch on fire as well. And where would Cass's mother live afterwards? As for natural disasters, earthquakes, hurricanes, killer viruses, you couldn't exactly snap your fingers and make them appear. And even if you could, the rule of unintended consequences was certain to go into effect. No, there didn't seem to be a way to make Cass's dying more tolerable. He would just have to try again and bring her back to life, no matter how long the odds. Maxar sat in the corner of the hospital bed without fully intending to start talking to Cass, fast and at great length, the way he used to. Hi, I don't know if you can hear me actually. I'm pretty sure you can't. I know people always talk to plants and babies and stuff, and it's pretty silly, if you ask me. You may as well just talk to yourself. Anyways, I'm talking to you now because I want to. I guess even though it doesn't make any sense, and because, well, you never know, right? Maybe it is what you will wake up. I mean, to get me to stop talking or something. By the way, speaking of babies, I'm going to have a baby brother. How about that? My parents are being pretty weird about it. And not weird, just like a terrible. And I'm kind of excited anyways. I always wanted a brother, just to get my parents off my back. But now they're off my back and I still want a brother. Kind of weird, huh? Why do I keep saying weird? I hate when people use that word. I guess I have somebody to talk to and stuff. Not that I don't have you, or that you're not going to be around to talk anymore, forget it. What I wanted to tell you was, no matter what happens, you'll always think of you and as my friend, my first friend, my best friend. But more than a friend, not more than a friend, more than a friend. Like a sister, I guess. Anyways, I keep thinking about all those times you pushed me in the water, even though I can't swim. Like at the Midnight Sun Spa, I remember when we had to get through the moat to save Benjamin Blake, and I didn't want to get in the water. Or the time you pushed me into the ocean off Dr. L's boat. Sure, I might have drowned, and you should probably have arrested or attempted murder, or at the time I totally wanted to kill you, but now that I think about it, I think you actually meant well, and was probably good for me to jump in the water and have a swim. Besides the fact that the Midnight Sun would have fed me to the sharks otherwise. I mean good, like I learned a lesson not to be afraid of water or whatever. Yeah, I know. I'm still afraid of water, but you know what I mean. And there was the time with the waterfall in the wild world. Anyways, I want you to know, no matter what happens to you, I won't stop doing any kind of stuff you would make me do. Even if I wanted to stop, I couldn't, because whenever I want to run away from something, your voice is in my head telling me to turn around and jump in the water. Just like now, when I wanted to run away from you. No offense. Well, that was what I wanted to say, just in case they were worried about me or anything. Okay, I guess it's time to try the monocle. All this talking is just stalling, isn't it? Wiping his tears, Max Ernest took the double monocle out of his pocket, then immediately put it back. Oh, I almost forgot, Yoyoji sent something to play for you first. He thought maybe it would activate some part of your brain or something. He said hi, by the way. Max Ernest pulled his laptop computer from his backpack. He opened it on the bed next to Cass and then clicked the sound file from his desktop. A loud guitar chord suddenly issued forth from his computer, followed by an extended riff in Yoyoji's unmistakable junior Jimi Hendrix style. Cool, huh? Don't tell me not to use the word cool. I know I'm using it right this time. After his guitar solo wound up, Max Ernest closed the computer and put it back in his backpack. First, he didn't notice the sound persisted after it should have stopped. The reverberating guitar chord might almost have been in lingering echo, but when the music started to grow louder and louder, he turned around in amazement. Yoyoji was standing in the doorway of Cass's room. In his hand was a guitar Max Ernest remembered so well, the blue guitar with the bright orange sticker for Yoyoji's band, Alien Ariat. Between his hair, which had now bright green, his sneakers, which were an even brighter yellow, Yoyoji looked like he had flown in from the psychedelic alien planet. Most definitely cool. I think you were using the word right, yo, said Yoyoji, grinning. So, aren't you going to say hey? Hey, said Max Ernest, managing a small grin back barely. I thought you weren't coming for another month. I got my parents to send me back early. I'm staying with you. Huh. Duh. My mom talked to your mom. Did she tell you? Max Ernest shook his head. I don't know if she remembers I exist these days. Yoyoji plugged his portable amplifier into his electrical socket, played one last deafening loud chord, and then leaned his guitar against Cass's wall of horrors. His face turned somber, and he took in the scene of what's in front of him. Whoa, it's like a full-on hospital in here. How's she doing? She's doing... Max Ernest stammered, unable to finish the sentence. Not good, huh? Max Ernest shook his head. I was supposed to bring her back, he said, his voice cracked. It was my job. Yoyoji took a step towards Cass and stepped back, visibly shaken. Well, I know you're doing your best, and I know she knows it too, okay? She doesn't know anything. Max Ernest, hiding his face in his shirt sleeve so Yoyoji wouldn't see him crying. She's in a coma. You don't know for sure. She might be listening to everything we're saying right now and thinking you're how dorky you are, said Yoyoji, trying to remain upbeat. Hey, is that supposed to be doing that? Max Ernest looked over to the heart monitor and thought he felt his own heart stopping. The green line of the screen had gone flat and the monitor was buzzing loudly. Second later, the monitor turned off altogether, and so did all the lights in the room and the hallway, and only a sliver of moonlight passing through the trees outside Cass's window still illuminated the room. Max Ernest and Yoyoji both rushed to the Cass's side. Max Ernest felt her wrist. She still has a pulse. There must have been a power surge or something, said Max Ernest quickly. You go down and see if you can turn the electricity back on and the fuse box right outside the kitchen. I'll call 911 just in case. By the time Max Ernest picked up the cordless phone Melanie had left for him, Yoyoji was out of the room. His hand shaking, Max Ernest started to dial the number and realized he had no dial tone. And that's when he felt a hard, cold object sticking into his back. Put that down, old chum. I think I cut all the telephone wires and I'm not taking any chances. Benjamin Blake. Of course it was Benjamin. Max Ernest thought. They had discussed turning off the power in the hospital in order to get the access to Cass. How much easier to do it here in Cass's house. Hi, Benjamin, he said, letting the dead phone drop to the floor. He was surprised that he was able to make himself sound so calm. That was a really terrible thing to do, you know. What if Cass had gone into respiration or something? Well, lucky for her, she wasn't. Now give me the double monocle, or I won't hesitate to use this. Use what? What do you think I'm holding in my hand, dear fellow? You don't have a gun. I may not be able to read your mind, but I know that. How can you be sure? Maybe I got it from the mutual friend is our new Promethean. The Midnight Sun don't have guns. They don't need them. You really want to risk it, old chum? A good question, true. He didn't remember seeing the Midnight Sun members hold guns, Max Ernest reflected. But they were so ruthless, they weren't hesitant to give one to Benjamin if they thought it would further his aims. How does the monocle work anyways? Max Ernest asked, stalling. I couldn't see into anybody's mind with it. I saw something else. The second lens gives you the second sight. It means something different for everyone, said Benjamin impatiently. Some people see ghosts, some people see into the mind, some people see the future. It depends on who you are and what you need to know. Except you always need to know everything, so you can't bring the image what you saw. He sneered. Now give it back to me. It's mine. Is it yours, really? Where did the Minute Sun get it? Knowing them, I'll bet it's stolen. Not at all. It's one of those oldest treasures dating back to Lord Pharaoh himself. I have been entrusted with it, said Benjamin proudly. I think you know Miss Minervis well enough to know we will all regret it if it gets lost. While Max Ernest was considering his options, he caught a glimpse of Blue Yoji's guitar flashing in the moonlight and just managed to step out of the way as the guitar came crashing down on Benjamin's head. In case you're worried about it, I hasten to inform you that Yoji's guitar is very lightweight model, unlikely to do lasting damage. He turned to see Benjamin slumped in his feet unconscious. A flash rolled into the floor. Clearly the flashlight, not a gun, had been the object sticking in Max Ernest's back. Thanks, Yo-Yo, Max Ernest dared to say. But it wasn't Yoji standing over Benjamin holding the guitar. It was Cass.